So, hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming. It's Diana's Diary, and as we do it, I always, pray. And we all believe in one person is either Allah or Christ, whoever. You have to get something that you believe in, but I believe in God. So, I'll just share a prayer, okay? Father, we thank you this evening. We give you all the glory, we give you all the honor. We soak whatever that we are going to say into your hands. I pray that my special guest, you speak through her, so that whatever that she is going to say will be a blessing unto somebody. Guide her and speak through her. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, I have prayed. Amen. Amen, amen, amen. Okay. How do you say your name again?
My name is Hodman.
Hodman. Thank you so much, darling. Thank you so much for coming to Diana's Diary. When I did reach out on you last minute, when I had a text message from a dearest friend, okay, and I wanted somebody who is so, educated and have that experience to support people who are going through that challenge, which is autism. And with your experience, with the little that I learned from you on the phone, I realized that you are deep into it, and you are somebody who is very dedicated, and you are passionate about whatever that you are doing. And I'm grateful that you have been able to make it on this platform, just to bring a smile onto somebody's face, that should just to change the narrative about the stereotyping. So thank you so much for gracing the platform. I'll first of all let you introduce yourself to everyone that is on, and we'll just roll with that. So thank you for coming.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Diana, for having me. And thank you to all the followers and the viewers. Assalamu alaikum. I hope you guys are all well, doing really well. It's actually it's a privilege to be on this platform. When Diana reached out, this is something that I'm very passionate about. I am a mum myself who has a child on the spectrum. And I agree, you have to have some sort of faith to be able to continue with the journey of autism. And this month being April as well, it's as Autism Awareness Month. I'm currently traveling, and when Diana reached out, I said this is something I'm more than happy to do so. So yes, I feel free to ask questions tonight. Anything that you feel comfortable, you want to know, I'm happy to support and let you know about who I am, what we do. The plan of tonight is to just kind of give you a bit of an insight of who I am and an organization which is very dear to my heart called Stepping Stones Together. Unfortunately, we were unable to join the live through that, but we will share the details at the end. So the platform, I give it back to Diana. So yeah.
Yes. So when first of all, I just want you to tell me a little bit about the word autism. When we talk about is we stereotype it and make it something very scary, that if you have a child like that, you are going to struggle, you don't know how to handle it. What do we mean when we talk about autism?
Okay. So with autism, it's a neurological disorder, and as you may know, coming from African family communities, autism is seen more of a disease or an illness or something that is not even talked about. So I am a Somali descent, so my background, I'm Somali. However, I was born and raised in the UK. So a bit about myself. So I am a pharmacist by background, and my master's is in clinical trial and research. I'm a data manager as a researcher in cancer. However, in the life when I became a mum, things had changed, and that's when the world of autism came to my life, I have to be honest. My son is 6. So when I noticed the difference in my child, he was a typical normal child, was meeting milestones. He was things that I wouldn't say that were quite the characteristics what many people may know. So he was talking, he was playing, he knew his name, He was calling people's names in the house. He understood, the comprehension was there. I think Diana's just paused. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, so when he was around 18 months is when I noticed the change in him. And I have to disclosure, I did not do the MMR. So a lot of families might feel that MMR has a lot of link to it. As you know, when the child turns 1, there's a vaccination. As personal reasons, I'm not an anti-vaccine. I believe in vaccines. However, I don't believe it's linked to autism. With the autism itself, it's still unknown. However, there are different factors that do play in. Some people may believe it's environmental. Some may believe it's genetics. And it's still the unknown. I have to be honest. We don't know what it is. However, the way each parent kind of tackles it, it's a parental choice. And we're here tonight to not discuss about what you should be doing, what you should not be doing, but I just want to share my experience. So with my son at 18 months, he didn't have the MMR. My first thing that I had noticed was that he was very much, it was like a switch, honestly. We woke up one morning and I just called his name and he wouldn't respond. As you can imagine, for me, it was quite of a shock. I was like, what's wrong? Like, why is he not responding? Then the other thing was his comprehension was decreasing. So what I mean by that is the little things that, oh, can you go and get me your shoe? He wouldn't understand that. If I would tell him, he knew, like, he would reference things. So if you saw the glasses, my mom's glasses, he knew the glasses belonged to my mom, but he started to forget that. So when my mom would say to him, can you go and get me your glasses? Can you get me grandma's glasses? He would just literally look at her and walk off. If I told him to come, he will go. It was little things like that. However, as a first-time mom, I didn't know what to kind of look for. Spoke to my family. They just thought I was crazy, I have to be honest. They were like, oh, you're overthinking things. It's in your head. There's nothing wrong with him. Look at him. He looks really well. He's fine. But then something in me kind of knew something wasn't right, because you just don't have a child that was responding and then just overnight just changes. But I have to be honest, there were small signs that I did notice, but at that moment I didn't know they meant anything. So for example, when I now look back at his videos, I have to say thank you to Snapchat, because they really did help me with memories. There are little videos that I remember at the age of 6 months. He would do a lot of hand stimming, but obviously he was still vocal. He would say mama, baba. He reached all his milestones, but there were little things that I had noticed was like he would rotate his hands, his feet. When he's excited and he's watching something, he would have this like facial stimming where he would kind of looks like as if he's having not a seizure, but like he would be like kind of so excited and his eyes would lit up. However, there's a fine line between of when you go to the health visitors, what they would say is, oh, children will tend to do this, but there's also how long do they continue doing it. That's when you kind of realize, okay, this is not a normal behavior. Because my son was born during COVID time, he was born in 2018, but then because of the whole development was through COVID, he didn't have much experience with his children. So that was another factor where they would always say to us, I would go to the GP and I would say, oh, there's something not right with my child. And they were like, no, it's because a lot of children have been during lockdown. They didn't get to see other children. Mom, you're overthinking things. It's fine. What other things are you experiencing? And that was quite a lot of backlash that I had received. Then I went to the health visitor. Unfortunately, it's quite of a hit and miss with the health visitor. Some are very on it and they will tell you straight away. Some are just like, Mom, is he sleeping? So for me, because he was my firstborn, he would he was very codependent, so he would sleep with me, and I didn't know better, so I thought that was just a normal behavior like many other children. And the only experience that I had with my own siblings or my mum, who would say to me, boys are different, boys normally delayed. And a lot of things that I would get from, like, especially being from an African community, was that your uncle, for example, spoke when he was 10, and that seems to kind of give comfort to parents. And I'm like, just because he spoke at 10 does not mean that that's okay. There must have been some underlying reason for that. So what I did was eventually, when he hit 18 months, and I noticed a huge regression. So with regression is that he was meeting milestones, and then it just kind of dipped. Like he started to forget this, like his normal independent skills. I went to the health visitor, and I was very determined that I wanted something to be checked. As you know, COVID at the time, we were not seeing anyone, doctors we couldn't see, and they would just brush me off. And one thing I want to say from this is that as parents, if you know there's something just telling you as an instinct as a parent that isn't right, there's no harm just finding out what it is. At the end of the day, you're going to get a good outcome. An outcome sometimes doesn't have to be a good or a bad. It's just the fact that you know that you've done something and you know about it. So what I did was, as any mum, I just started to research. But the sad thing was that I didn't know what I was researching about, because autism was never come to my mind. All I could say was, when I went on Google research, I would just say, my son stopped talking. My son is not responding to his name. That's the only thing I could kind of gather, because I didn't know what I was looking for. I then went, so while I was doing my search on Google, I have to say thank you to Google. Now we've got ChatGPT, but at that time it was Google. We then eventually, what came up was a video, and I wish I could share it today, but there's a video on YouTube, and it showed a girl, the same girl, a neurotypical girl and a girl on the spectrum. But at that time I didn't know what a spectrum was. And the girl on the neurotypical girl, so some people may want to know what a neurotypical is a normal typical child that is not on the spectrum. She would respond when her parent would call her name. She would follow instructions. She understood the game, turn-taking games. However, there was another video right next to it where it was the same girl doing completely opposite. So she would hand lead. So she would hold her parent hand to show what she wanted. She wouldn't point. She wouldn't follow instructions. She would children around her, she wouldn't pay attention to it. She would just kind of turn around. And for me, I'm very much a visual learner, I looked at that and I said, that's what my son is. That's my son. So I showed my family. I said, this is my son. This is my son. And they all looked at me thinking I was going crazy. And I was like, no. This is exactly what my son's doing. So I searched at the comments. It said autism. So I felt that, okay, this is victory now. Like, I know it's autism. Let's now find the cure for it. So like, surely if there's a name, there has to be something for it. So I went on Google.
Do you have a second phone to go on Instagram as well?
On Instagram, I think, one second, I think there's someone on here from Stepping Stones. I can't go on it, but I don't know if is it people want me to go on? Unfortunately, I only got the one phone.
one person who is on Instagram saying that, but I've gone on there so that she could just hear you from here, because
that's fine.
Yeah, so you can continue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if you can see the comments and how many people are on live. I can't see that at the moment.
I'm seeing all the comments. Your Stepping Stone people are commenting. So many people. So we'll go through after finish one after the other.
Okay, I just don't want to miss any comments, so I do apologize in advance. I can't see anything. So where was I? So eventually what happened was I started to show the video to my family. I said, this must be it. This is what my son has. They still thought I was going crazy at the time.
The comment section from Stepping Stone who says, don't worry, I'll be in the comments.
Okay, that's fine. Brilliant. So what I did was eventually I started to research about autism. I said, what is it? I need to understand. Went on search about it, and this is when I kind of went in this kind of rabbit hole, you would call it, because it's like, autism, what is it? What can I do about it? How can I support my child? What is autism? Is there a cure? So while going through that, I realized that online there was so many people telling me different things. Some people would tell me that you need to do stem cell therapy. Some of you may have heard. Some were telling me that you need to do a particular therapy. Some would say to me, you need to have this amount of money to do this amount of therapy. Some would say that it's the environmental, so the food that you're giving your child is causing it, so you have to go gluten-free. And then I was like, it was really difficult, and especially when the doctors are still in keeping us on the waiting list. So what I did do is that I stopped focusing on the cure, I started to focus on, at this point, he was around 2 years and 4 months. Yeah. And I was pregnant with my daughter at the time. And I said, I don't care. I know that it's whatever it is, whether it's autism or not, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and support him. And when I looked at the support, it wasn't about how to make him get better. It was more about how can I get his skills to come back? How can I get him to respond to his name? How can I get him to become more independent? What does he need? So the first thing I started to think about was speech language, because that's the speech was something that I felt that the communication part, if I don't know what he wants, his needs, how can I support that? So that was the kind of avenue I went. So I got myself, I did a hair testing. So I've gone through a lot. So I did hair testing on him. I took a piece of his hair. I think I kind of blame it on my research background. So I sent it off to the labs. I sent it to the labs. It came back. And this is why I always emphasize, and I say it does not have anything to do with MMR. The reason why I say that, when the results had come back, it showed that his mercury was so low that it was insignificant. It wasn't needed to be done. However, what he did have high, which was like really high levels, was arsenic. So arsenic is a metal, is an environmental compound which is normally found in crops, which is like rice. And I have to be honest, he loved a lot of rice at that time. So a lot of families would say, oh, if you're giving your child rice pudding or any like rice and stuff like that, you have to rinse the rice quite a lot. So you can imagine a parent finding out this is could potentially be the cause. I was washing the rice so many times that it was like, at that point it was just like I kept washing it. I was trying to find any way to kind of avoid it going further. So that's one thing. So they said to me, okay, in order to kind of lower that, so what I did was I did some research on arsenic, and a research paper came out which showed that children or adults who have high levels of arsenic have lower IQ, have stimming behavior, aggressive behavior, and that's the sort of information that came up. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. However, the article that had shown that was showing that it was only done on a group of children. So what I did do was then I went back to do my master's. So I went to do my master's in clinical trial research. And the reason why I did clinical trial research was that to discovery of new drugs and therapy. And I personally was like, I need to be able to educate myself. And I don't want to be a parent that just follows WhatsApp messages. Someone says, try this, and I run to it. I said, I need to make sure I understand how I can support my child. So I went to do my research. I went to university. I had my son at that time was 2.5, and I just gave birth. For some reason, I thought I could do my master's during my maternity. I would not advise anyone to do that. It was the most intense moment of my life. So I did my master's, and that kind of really helped me to like do better research to understand my child's needs. Then what came about was something called ABA. ABA is Applied Behavior Analysis. It's about the behavior of human body, of why they do what they watch, why we react in certain ways, and why a child or an adult is just a way of how to support a child, especially children with social communication, because they struggle with communication, and certain behaviors such as self-harming behaviors a lot of children do because of frustration, and they have some challenging behaviors, and which can then portray when people are seeing, oh, this child is aggressive. But a lot of the time, the aggression is based on an underlying communication issue where the child's unable to vocalize, so they get frustrated. So with ABA, as any parent, it is a controversial topic. I have to put that out there. But the best thing I can say to any parent is, you know your child best. You know what works for your child. And it's good to get advice from different people, but ultimately what works for me may not work for your child. Also, what works for your family may not work for my family, but the goal is under the SEND umbrella, which is SEND stands for special education needs, which is autism on the spectrum, is to support one another, regardless of what route that you take. We all have the same challenges, and we just need to support each other. So what I did was, as any parent, I went online again. Online has been my best mate. So I went online and then I searched about ABA. And the reason why I went with the ABA route was because I didn't want to do anything invasive. I didn't want to do metal detox. I didn't want to put anything in his body. And also, most importantly, at the end of the day, your child is your responsibility. You can't just go to the GP and say, I'm injecting this on my child to expect them to talk. You have to be very cautious, because especially picky eaters. So my son, this is when I noticed that my son would only eat like foods that he was familiar with. So for example, with if he would have pasta, he wouldn't eat the onions, or he wouldn't have the peas, for example. He would have pasta, but then it has to be kind of in a certain texture. At that time, I just felt like he was. When people would ask me, "Does he eat?" I would say, "Yeah, he eats pasta. He eats lasagna," but not noticing that he's not eating a lot of variety of food, because I wasn't kind of exposed to understand what the sensory need was. And I noticed that sensory played a huge role in his life. The other thing I had noticed was that at night he wouldn't sleep. He would wake up in the middle of the night, and I kid you not, he would be crying from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. and I just thought he was having nightmares. He would be crying constantly. He would be running around. Especially he wouldn't go to the toilet. That was another thing as well. He would have he was constipated for like days on end. And then I would still try to I would give him lactulose. I would try this, I would try that. And then at night he would still be up. But then I thought, well, maybe it's because he's scared of something, or he was exposed to something today. And then as our cultural background as well, being African, it was like, oh, it must be evil spirits or something is happening with him. So there was so many different things that you would constantly hear. Eventually, we then we went to the doctors again. And I said to them, my son is 2 and 4 months. Something is not right. I don't care what it is. I showed them the video and I said, I don't care what it is, just put me on the waiting list at this point. So the doctor said, I can't argue. He said, I see that you are really sure about this. I said, I think he's got autism. They're like, are you sure? So what normally happens is they put you through the speech language referral. I didn't really care. I just wanted him to be seen at this moment. So they referred him. If I were to tell you, it took us 8 months just to be put on to be seen. 8 months on the list. I wasn't seen by anyone. Just 8 months from the day they received my referral and the day that they logged it.
Oh no!
So in that period of time, what I was doing was I started to do therapy at home. When I was starting the therapy, as I mentioned, I did ABA.
Someone was supporting you at home.
So what I did was I researched online and I said, okay, ABA. The reason why I went through the ABA route was because, one, it was saying that it's going to support my child's communication, because I wanted my child to be able to communicate with me. 2, it said that it was going to support him with his behavior. A lot of children on the spectrum, especially autistic children, what hinders them for them to be able to meet their milestones or targets, you may know, is a lot of the behaviors that interrupts the disruption of their behaviors that hinders them, that stops them to be able to meet their targets. So that's one thing the other thing that it said that it was going to support. The other thing that it also highlighted was that a lot of self-stimming behaviors will be able to, for the child to be able to learn to self-regulate themselves other ways, to kind of redirect rather than. So I'll give you an example. My son had a habit of his stimming was that he would use like a ruler or any object in his hand where he was just kind of self-stimulate himself, like he would hit himself on his chin, his hand, on his body, and he could do that hours on end. And what I had noticed was when I wanted him to be able to focus, he wouldn't be able to focus. He would still do that. So with ABA, what I noticed was that the consultant had come to the house. I think there's an important part I want to highlight. When the consultant came to the house, she said, I'm going to do an assessment on my child. At this point, I didn't know what they were assessing, but I just felt like it was the closest thing of getting support, because at that point, we were not getting any support from anyone. She came to the house and she brought a bag full of toys. Like, it was like heaven. It was toys upon toys upon toys. And my son was only interested in the car truck, the wheel. He would spin that constantly. And when I say there were toys, I mean, there was even I got excited trying new different toys, but he was more focused on the spinning toys, and he would just spin and spin and spin. Then she would call his name, he wouldn't respond. She would ask him to do little things, nothing. Oh, can you match this item to this item? he was just like, at one point he just had the giggles. He was just smiling and laughing at her. He was like, this is quite fun. So we sat there. She did a very comprehensive assessment, asking questions about his development, his how he was born. So my son was born via C-section. He was 39 weeks. He was born on 40 weeks. It was a emergency C-section. Other than that, he was healthy. She asked questions about our family, siblings. We did everything. It seemed fine on paper. So then she started to do the milestone assessment, and it took us 3 hours. She was assessing him. 3 hours. She was in our house assessing him. After 3 hours, as any parent, I said, okay, what does he have? And she responded and she said, I can't say, I'm not a doctor, but the characteristics and what I can see and what he's portraying, his social communication is very much in line with autism. So this is what they tend to say. So they're not doctors. So they will say that the behaviors that he's portraying and how I can see him, he's on the spectrum, but I can't tell you the sort of level that he's at. However, what we can do is we can start. So there's different levels. So with autism, so the levels does not mean about how severe the child is. It's the level of support. And there's a misconception of a lot of families believing that if your child is level 1, level 2, or level 3, just because the child is level 3 doesn't mean the severity is based on the support of the child. So that would look like, can your child be left alone in a room? Can your child be able to call for someone? Can your child be able to understand danger? That's the sort of the severity of the support. So a lot of families will say, oh, my child is high functioning, for example. So a lot of terminologies that would be used is that my child's high functioning. What high functioning normally is are children that are able to be left alone, who are able to communicate, understand danger awareness, but they struggle with communication. So they're very much isolated. They struggle with the back and forth communication. They struggle with, they tend to do things by themselves, whereas a child that is on level 3 would not even have an awareness of understanding there's people around them, would not have understanding of them, tend to be very much non-verbal, so they don't even communicate. So that's the level. When it talks about level, it's more about, it's related to the support. So at that time, my son was the level of support he required was significantly high, because he didn't understand his surroundings. Anything, he would put anything in his mouth, so choking hazard. So the level that he was at that time was very high. So the support that he required was, he would require 24 hours supervision, monitoring support. That's the sort of level that he had required. So when she did her assessment, we started to do a plan. So she asked, the question was, what do you want help with? And I said, 1, I want him to be toilet trained. I said, I want him to understand I wanted him to be toilet trained. I also want him to understand danger. I wanted him to learn to communicate, and I wanted for me to understand him. So what the program looked like was, she would come to the house. So we had a tutor who would come to the house, and I have to be honest, the first few weeks was so hard. He would cry because he was never challenged. Because as a parent, you just learn to give your child anything you want. You don't let them kind of express themselves. You kind of know their routine. So when he wanted water, all you had to do was just look at me, and I would know to get the water for him. But she as a speech language as well, she would say, give him opportunities to be able to ask you things. So we had the therapist, so she would come 6 hours a week. We had like 6 to 8 hours. They would come to the house Monday to Saturday. The only day we had off was Sunday, and I was doing my master's at the same time. It was really intense, and within, I think, around 2, what was shocking was once she did the assessment, her response was, I said, what is the level that my son's at? Because at that point he was 2.5, and what she said was, he's 18 months. His cognitive development is at 18 months, but he's 2 and a few months. So you can imagine the gap. So that's when his regression started. So from 18 months to 2.5, my son, he didn't develop. The only development was growth, but cognitively, understanding, comprehension. He was still at 18 months, and there was like so this is what they call the global development delay. So you may hear this word. It's not just autism. You could be autistic, but you could also have a high IQ, where a lot of people think autism is just related to high functioning, who are high achievers. There are still children who are autistic, but then there's an element called global development delay, which means that their age level, they're significantly lower to their peers. So as soon as she said that to me, I was completely heartbroken.
You continue. We've got some messages, but I
Yes.
want you to quickly, because we've got
Yes.
15 more minutes. I want you to tell us, the support that people can get, because this lady who wrote to me, I think about the challenges that she is facing, and she is worried about how the child cannot talk, and it's just her alone in the house. And imagine you telling us that it took you almost a year, which is 8 months, to get
It
that.
took me 2 years. I have to be honest, he got diagnosed 2.5 years. And this is reason why I'm highlighting that the work that I did privately was because early intervention is such a key thing. And a lot of families don't know what early intervention looks like. I think it's simple. I think as you've
with us and with the support, with early intervention, this is what we have to do. Throughout to stepping stone, how you open your thing, and just hit on the support for us, darling.
Okay, so with regards to the support, so with the NHS, I have to be honest, it's they have a huge backlog. The backlog is significantly high. What my son was seeing, the first person that saw him was speech language, and when they saw speech language, they said to us that he's going to be on the waiting list again for another year at that point. But that moment, I had already started to do therapies at home. So the question that you're asking is, what could they possibly do? If your child is if they're going to nursery, the best thing I would definitely say is go to a nursery that has an intervention in-house. So there are some nurseries who are children's centers who support children on the spectrum, who provide therapies like speech language and OT. It's very important because speech language will obviously help you as a parent to understand how you can support your child. Also, sometimes financial is one of the biggest factor why a lot of parents are unable to get the early intervention, because as I mentioned, the waiting list is very long. What you could possibly do is go to a stay and play. There are very good stay and play in your local area who brings children together, and sometimes they actually bring professionals to come in and support parents. Also, another thing is that also allow yourself to grieve. I think this is the most important part, because for me, my son is 6 today, and alhamdulillah, by the great blessing from Allah, that I'm at a stage where I'm able to be on a platform to talk about it. A few years ago, it was very difficult. I was in a situation where I was constantly trying to find support. You kind of lose yourself as a parent. You kind of lose friends. You kind of lose people because you just focus on trying to support your child. The first thing is that you go through this in denial stage at the beginning. You tell yourself it's going to get better. It's okay. They're going to grow out of it. That's the first stage. Then there's a second stage where you're like, you start to grieve. The grieving is coming from the fact that no one is given a child, and any parent is not given a manual guide on how to support your child. However, with special needs, it's another ball game, because you start to feel isolated, because not family, friends that you may be familiar with who have children have not gone through the experience. And then you have comments that will people say, oh, why is he not talking? Or why is she's not talking? And what's going on? And remember, no two children on the spectrum are alike. So allow yourself to go through that process of, it's okay. It's okay that your child needs support. As a parent, the best advice I can give you is that the acceptance will take time, but allow yourself to go through the journey, to support them. Reach out to people who are on the same, who are the same journey. Ask the questions. Ask the questions. Always feel asked the questions. Because one thing in our BAME community, especially the African communities, we have this pride not to ask things. Oh, I don't want someone to know about it. We kind of shield our children. And one thing that definitely helped me is when I started to become vocal and I started to ask people to say, I've noticed this in my child. How can you support? I have to be honest, that's when the real support started. Friends and family. I had people that would there are people that have been on the journey longer than you have. Reach out to them. How did you potty train? What did you do? Other things that really help is children on the spectrum. Do not focus on the speech. My son is sick. He started to talk and speak. Oh, I want him to talk. I wanted him to talk. Focus on understanding. Is your child understanding what you want him to do? So support him through visuals if that's something that helps them. So a lot of children, especially children on the spectrum, work really well with visuals. Show them, like, one thing that really helped us was showing him visuals of the now and next. So saying that you're going to do this, like we're going to go bath time, bedtime. So showing them visuals. Also allowing your child to be independent. That's the one thing I could say, is allowing your child to be independent. Trying new things. So if you say to your child, for example, as parents, we feel that, especially children on the spectrum, they are still physical. They're still physical. We believe that just because they have a disability, that we kind of put them in a shell, and we think they're unable to do things.
You're able to hear me now?
I can hear you.
Yeah, I think it was the service is breaking from our end. What
Yes.
I was asking you, that a lot of mothers, when I put you on, that they were worried about. Now you've made me understood, because you were talking about their speech, and a lot of mothers are worried about they not being able to talk. But you're saying that we should concentrate on the understanding, because if they are able to understand, that will lead them to start speaking. Is that the case?
Yeah, so the reason why families focus on speech is because speech is what's more visible. When your child's not talking, automatically it's like there's something wrong. People will notice that. So while parents are like, no, I want my child to speak, a lot of families who their children are maybe autistic, who are verbal, it seems that it's not as much of a difficulty, because if the child's unable to communicate, if my child goes to school and comes back, or if he's left alone and he can't tell me his name and his age, that's what scares parents. It's like, I don't know if he's happy, I don't know if he's sad, I don't know if he's sick. So with my son, there were times that he'll be so sick and I'm doing the guessing game. Where is hurting? Your feet, your ear, your ears. So there were situations where I have to advocate for my child, because the doctors would say to me, oh, it's just his autism, he had ear problems, oh, it's just his autism, it's his sensory. But then he actually became, the reason why was that he had a lot of wax in his ears, and where he had to go through to. Yes, I agree, speech is vital to understand, but it's also remembering that there are children on the spectrum who do say words, but they have no understanding what the words mean. So that's what that causes. It's called echolalia. So what that means is that they just copy phrases from the TV. So a lot of families would say, my child speaks, and then when you literally focus, their speech means nothing in the aspect of it's not functional. It's not a back and forth. If I'm asking the child, how was your day today? And they're saying the food is delicious, that communication, the autism it's a spectrum, and there are different within the spectrum. Every child is unique. There's some children who are very amazing at some things and requires a lot of support in other things. So the support that the child needs is going to always be unique and tailored to that child. So when you are doing support for speech language, for example, be involved, parents. Be involved. Be the first advocate for your child. If they are telling you that, some common things that they may say to you is that, I don't know, you might need to do intensive interaction. So that's a sort of form of a speech language, which is a therapy that they will say that it's the way to support your child is copy your child if you want them to interact with you. That might be a way that it works for your child. Whereas some children are unable to sit still and focus. So they are going to require a lot of OT. So you may want to know, what is OT? OT is occupational therapy. And a lot of our children, especially a lot of autistic children, struggle because of their sensory overload. So with my son, he wouldn't be able to sit still, so he would require like a bouncy ball, he would require fidgety toys. It could be the sensory. So what sensory is things that would disrupt them to be able to focus. It could be the light, it could be noise, it could be texture. So sometimes speech language and OT needs to work hand in hand. The reason why I say that is speech language focuses on the communication. If the child's unable to sit still and focus, and you want them to like do a puzzle, but they're going to need OT, because why the child is not engaging with the speech language is because the child has a lot of sensory. So he's going to need a bouncy ball to be able to say open. He's going to need a fidgety toy to be able for him to kind of engage with you. So if you're going to have speech language, always focus also on OT. And that's one thing that I always now say to parents, because I didn't know much about OT at that time, but they work very closely. And a lot of parents focus on speech language because they feel that speech language is going to do a miracle and be able to communicate. Speech language is important, but also having OT is important because it supports with motor growth skills. If your child's talking but is unable to put a jacket on, is unable to do a button on his shirt, he's unable to eat on a spoon, by them talking and they're not having independent skills, they have to work together. And this is one other thing I want to say before I know we're going to cut off soon, is having all the therapies work as a multidisciplinary together. Do not isolate one therapy on its own. Do not put all your eggs in one basket. Don't just focus on speech, or don't just focus on OT. Children on the spectrum requires a collective support. Moving on to what we currently do. So with my son's autism diagnosis and the therapy that I have been doing with my child, we've opened, what I had noticed was that a lot of parents were struggling with where to take them. Early intervention is key, and I emphasize that. And one thing I hate is to say something that's going to support, but then not give the support. And this is why we've opened Stepping Stones Together. It's a non-profit organization. It supports children who are on the spectrum, autistic, and with learning difficulties. And what we do is we've opened a social club for them. Yeah.
So the support.
Okay. So Stepping Stones, it's a non-profit organization. Yeah. So Stepping Stones is a non-profit organization supporting parents and care siblings who have children on the spectrum to be able to socialize in a social setting while also receiving early intervention therapy support. So what that focuses on is behavior therapy support. We have how we do that is we have 12 children as a cohort of children where they'll be receiving one-to-one support by a therapist and a tutor. A lot of the time, children on the spectrum are isolated and excluded because of their behavior and because of the staff not being able to support children on the spectrum because they're not skilled enough with certain behaviors. With the organization, what we do is we run a social club on every Saturday. We do an assessment before the child joins. During the assessment, the purpose of the assessment is not to say whether your child can join the club, but it's more related to how can we better support the child. So we have children on the spectrum of various, so some are verbal, some are non-verbal, some have challenging behaviors. I don't like calling it challenging behaviors, but unfortunately this is what is referred to. When I say challenging behaviors, it could be self-harming behaviors, it could be children that do not like to engage with other children. What we do is we provide opportunities for them to be able to socialize. So it's similar to like a social club. They'll be doing turn-taking games, they'll be doing story time, they will be doing activity. We also have support where our site has a OT, so that kind of supports them to be able to have their gross motor skills support. That also helps them turn take as well. The other thing that we do is also we make sure that parents are also involved. A lot of the intervention, there's no point us supporting your child if you don't know what's happening. So we allow parents to stay on site, but they'll have their own separate room, and then they will then able to meet other parents who are also going through the same journey, and they are able to exchange ideas, have conversation, and kind of gives them the 2 hour, we call it therapy hours, which is 2 hours where they stay with the families and they have conversations, and just we do workshops for them where we discuss about how they can be supported, what's in your local borough, in your local office. We then also, what we do is for the children, because a lot of special needs children are isolated and don't get invited to birthday parties, we've introduced a birthday party for the child. So we had our first birthday party for the children. So we as the organization will be able to support you with that, and then we provide the cake free of charge to the family. All you have to do is just turn up, sit there and enjoy.
Wow, wow. Kundu, can you add the contact details? You said you are based in Ealing, West London. Is that your main office now?
Yes. So yes.
Is there any contact?
You can follow us on Stepping Stones on our Instagram.
Yeah, Stepping Stones on Instagram. Yeah.
Yes. So Stepping Stones will start writing on.
If you can.
Yeah. The other thing is I wanted to announce is that the reason why we. Okay, so the other thing is as well that I wanted to highlight, we are the only specialist social club, and the reason why we're a specialist is that every child will be receiving one-to-one support. Before the child joins, they will also be having a assessment done. The purpose of the assessment, as I mentioned, is not to say whether your child can able to join. It's more of to see this level of support that your child may need. As I mentioned, we have children, various of different children. Our staff that are currently we've got one-to-one staff, we've got play therapists, tutors. We also have ABA tutors which also work, and then we have 4 BCBAs, which are consultants who overlooks at the program, and they support every child individually. Every child will have their own targets. So as I mentioned, every child on the spectrum is unique and they're tailored support. One child, so I'll give you an example. It says your live will end in 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, so for example, a child that is able to communicate and a child that is unable to not communicate, for example, what we'll do is we'll support them by, which you can see on our videos that I've just posted on today. They'll play together. So a lot of the children on the spectrum tend to parallel play. So what we try to get is to give them opportunities to play together with their one-to-ones. So what we'll do is we'll say when the child is showing interest in a toy, we'll say to the other child who's able to play, kind of engage with the other child, and this way it kind of gives them opportunities to kind of explore and play. We had recently we've been open since February. We had our first fundraising event where we had over 110 guests attended in February. We are,
because of the time that is going to cut, someone just
now nearly finishing our first term of our first term of, yeah, I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah. At what age can they join?
I don't know. Would it allow me to rejoin again, or is it only 1 day?
They can let you rejoin.
So we our youngest. Okay, I can't see anything, so it's just gone blank on my end.
But if we go off, all the questions will go. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to rush through the questions with you, and when it's off, the questions will be coming. I will send them to you to your page. Then you can go through and maybe I'll answer them back. But let's go through now. Happy Autism Day.
Okay, let's go through.
Okay. So my
So
first
we have a fun
one
day
is
coming up at the end of the month.
okay.
It will be fun day for family and friends. Out, so you're more than welcome to everyone to join.
Wow, happy. You guys are doing brilliant. You guys are doing good job. These things are really looked upon in the community. Someone just said it's really looked upon in the community. Jacqueline, she said my journey, yes, it was a spectrum, so every person will be on some part of it. A lady just said, okay. Wow, you go, you have been through a lot. Well done. And they just applauding you. And a consistent routine is necessary to support.
So the age that you
yeah, the age. So I think for now is the age. At what age can they join
so the
your
youngest
group?
that we currently have is 4. The youngest we currently have is 4.5. It does based on assessment. I have to be on. Normally we'll say 5 to 11. We did have a child who was 4.5. Because remember this, as I mentioned, all children on the spectrum have various abilities. So it does depend on the level of support the child may require. So the assessment is based on the assessment. But if the child is 5 to 11 is what we cater to. Any children younger than 5 will have to be an assessment to see how they can fit into the cohorts.
I must say that you are doing a very great job.
The other thing I wanted to
yeah. Yeah. Go for it.
Thank you so much. The other thing I wanted to say is that as parents, I know the live is about to finish. I just want to say that you are your first advocate for your child. You know your child best, and never feel shy to speak up. And if you feel that something isn't right, speak up. Ask for the right support. There is another topic I would love to discuss about, which we can definitely do another time. Is about the education.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Definitely, we want you back. We want you back because this is really
side of things, especially if you're the support that you need to get.
Thank you so much, Homeman. It's been a great day because it's very broad. So sorry about the technical issues that happened initially, and as we were about to end, sorry, my special guest, that it has to end at your side. I know that it is getting better, and it will be better, and it's going to be best. Thank you all for supporting my dream and making the world a better place. Nyamin Shramo. I love you all. Bye.